I'm very happy that we can move away from the limiter and compressor, which can often be very difficult to hear, and transition over to the frequency and timbre-based effects, which are often the easiest to hear. So I've added the reverb to the beginning of this vocal sample just to lengthen it out, and we're going to go through these frequency and timbre-based effects rather quickly. And once we do that, you'll be able to jump in and experiment with all of these on your various tracks that you have in your loop. So we'll begin with the filter, and we have two modes. We have low pass and we have high pass. We've briefly touched on these guys already, but now we can finally take it home. So with the cutoff here at 100 or at 20,000 hertz, we'll hear no effect right now.
He's ready for the next step, and he can do it.
But as I start to pull this down, we'll get rid of the high frequency content and keep the low frequency content. So listen to the reverb and listen to her voice as this changes.
He's ready for the next step, and he can do it. He's ready for the next step. He's ready for the next step, and he can do it.
What resonance will do is it will add a peak at around this cutoff point. So if we're at 1.2K or 1,219 hertz, that is where the peak is going to be added. So let's increase the resonance quite a bit.
He's ready for the next step, and he can do it. He's ready for the next step, and he can do it. He's ready for the next step, and he can do it.
And sometimes if you do this and have the resonance high enough, you can find some really nasty resonant frequencies, oftentimes around 250 to 350. And so you might hear a really nasty sound in here. Let's see if we can get that working.
He's ready for the next step, and he can do it. He's ready for the next step.
Oh, there it was.
And he can do it. He's ready for the next step, and he can do it.
Yeah, you can hear that at 240. There's something in her voice or with the recording equipment that it really peaks out at that point. All right, high pass works exactly the opposite. So if I have my cutoff all the way up at 20,000 hertz to begin with, what should happen? We shouldn't hear any sound at all. In this case, the filter is not that accurate inside of Soundation, so we can still hear a bit. But in theory, with this all the way up, we shouldn't hear anything. And with it all the way down, we should hear the entire frequency spectrum here.
He's ready for the next step, and he can do it.
So as I pull up on the cutoff here, we're going to be removing low frequencies first and keeping the high frequencies.
He's ready for the next step, and he can do it. He's ready for the next step, and he can do it. He's ready for the next step, and he can do it.
And remember, where you put your filter matters. If we put this before the reverb, if our reverb is wide open, we'll probably hear more frequencies because the reverb is adding those in based on the space. And that's totally different if the filter is after the reverb, because this is not only going to be changing the signal, it's also going to be changing the reverb. All right, so just keep that in mind with the filter. So let's put this into low pass mode and just maybe take off a little bit of the high end.
He's ready for the next step, and he can do it. He's ready for the next step, and he can do it. He's ready for the next step, and he can do it. He's ready for the next step, and he can do it. He's ready for the next step.
Okay, I like the settings there. Let's go in and add another one of these effects. Let's go with the degrader. The degrader is a distortion effect, and it actually is similar to what happens when we clip. All right, so we have a rate control, which is controlling sample rate, and a reduction, which is controlling the bits. So it's a bit reducer here. You don't have to worry about what those mean. I'll just go ahead and pull up on a couple of these guys, and you'll hear exactly what's going on.
He's ready for the next step, and he can do it. He's ready for the next step, and he can do it. He's ready for the next step, and he can do it. He's ready for the next step, and he can do it. He's ready for the next step, and he can do it. He's ready for the next step, and he can do it. He's ready for the next step, and he can do it. He's ready for the next step, and he can do it. He's ready for the next step, and he can do it.
So that effect, again, is very self-explanatory. And here's where you'll definitely hear a difference with the filter before and the filter after. And I'll just move the filter after.
He's ready for the next step, and he can do it. He's ready for the next step, and he can do it. He's ready for the next step, and he can do it. He's ready for the next step, and he can do it. He's ready for the next step.
So clearly, where you put your effects does matter. That is the best example of that right there. Okay, so if we want to even emphasize the effect more, we can increase gain. We also have a dry-wet mix here, and this is where with the distortions, you're going to want to be careful. I always kind of use my distortions at very low percentages, unless I really want to crush the signal and make it totally unintelligible. So I'll pull the mix down to 0, and then just kind of pull this up to where I get somewhere I'm happy with.
He's ready for the next step, and he can do it. He's ready for the next step, and he can do it.
And because we have a resonance going in, it's actually making some of these settings have an even greater effect. So what I'll probably do is put in an additional filter after this.
He's ready for the next step, and he can do it. He's ready for the next step, and he can do it. He's ready for the next step, and he can do it. He's ready for the next step, and he can do it.
Okay, so I kind of like the sound of that effect there. Let's go in and choose our next frequency effect, and that's going to be the phaser. Now, the phaser is really an interesting one, and it's kind of hard to explain, but the phaser is actually changing the sound based on filters. Okay, so there's a bunch of different filters happening here, and it's impacting the phase of the sound, and then we can add in a little bit of modulation using this rate and this depth, and that's what's kind of moving those filters, and that gives you the classic phaser effect. In other courses, we'll be covering the phaser in much greater depth, but for now, let's just put in a setting, and you already know what this guy does, so.
He's ready for the next step, and he can do it. He's ready for the next step, and he can do it.
So if we want it to be moving very slowly or super fast.
He's ready for the next step, and he can do it. He's ready for the next step, and he can do it.
And I think the feedback, the best way of explaining feedback is how much emphasis is that movement going to have? Are we really going to be able to hear it, or will we barely be able to hear it?
He's ready for the next step, and he can do it. He's ready for the next step, and he can do it. He's ready for the next step, and he can do it.
So with color, we can hear either a phaser that emphasizes low frequencies or one that emphasizes high frequencies. Up to you.
He's ready for the next step, and he can do it. He's ready for the next step, and he can do it.
And then our dry wet.
He's ready for the next step, and he can do it. He's ready for the next step, and he can do it. He's ready for the next step, and he can do it. He's ready for the next step, and he can do it. He's ready for the next step, and he can do it. He's ready for the next step, and he can do it. He's ready for the next step, and he can do it.
All right, so I kind of like that setting there for the phaser. And remember to experiment with these effects on every kind of signal that you have. Moving on, we have another type of distortion. And this distortion gives us a bunch of different options. And you can just check these out on your own. We have clip, fold back, and 3 types of wave shaping. And really, there's no reason in trying to explain these. The smarter thing to do is for whatever signal you have, just kind of try all of them out and listen to what you prefer. And then you can dial in gain to give you as much an effect as you're looking for. So
he's ready for the next step, and he can do it. He's ready for the next step, and he can do it. He's ready for the next step, and he can do it. He's ready for the next step, and he can do it. He's ready for the next step, and he can do it. He's ready for the next step, and he can do it. He's ready for the next step, and he can do it. He's ready for the next step, and he can do it. He's ready for the next step, and he can do it.
Okay, so I'll probably go with the third wave shaping option there. And you can hear some of those are pretty gnarly there on the distortion scale. All right, we have an equalizer. And with this equalizer, it's just a basic 3-band EQ. And we can hype the low end, the mids, or the highs, or take some away. And this is based on their own built-in crossover frequency points. And they don't tell us where those are. But again, very self-explanatory, easy to use.
He's ready for the next step, and he can do it. He's ready for the next step, and he can do it. Next step, and he can do it. He's ready for the next step. He's ready for the next step.
So I think I'll actually cut out some of the highs.
And he can do it. He's ready for the next step, and he can do it. He's ready for the next step, and he can do it.
And I'll emphasize the lows.
He's ready for the next step, and he can do it. He's ready for the next step, and he can do it. He's ready for the next step, and he can do it. He's ready for the next step, and he can do it.
Okay, so that's pretty cool, I think. And other than that, we're good to go. Those are all of our frequency and timbre-based effects. If I wanted to, and I want to get rid of that annoying resonance that keeps busting through, I could add yet another filter and maybe just pull back on that a little.
He's ready for the next step. You can do it. He's ready for the next step. You can do it. He's ready for the next step. You can do it. He's ready for the next step. You can.
And there's nothing to stop me from then combining this with some of the other effects that we've looked at.
He's ready for the next step. You can do it. He's ready for the next step. You can do it. He's ready for the next step. You can do it. He's ready for the next step. You can do it.